So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about design thinking and leadership. And I'll start with the thought process. So with all my academic honesty, a large part of the content that I've taken in has been taken in from different people, almost around 5 people. I have copied the concepts and I have taken their ideas. So none of it is emerging out of me. Yes, as a teacher, I've adapted to, thank you to everybody whose material I've used. I would like to start off from the sweet spot of innovation is what we call. When we look at design thinking, the entire premise design thinking ka ye hai that how creative are you to find a solution. How we are a very SOP kind of a thought process. हम जब बड़े होते हैं, the way we are groomed from school to colleges to management colleges to even doing business, people want a particular kind of a process to be there. And what we don't realize is that across all these years, definitely process is important, the way is important, but what happens is that across this way, cognitively, और ये this is a neuro reality, cognitively हमारे cognitive schemas एक खास process में चलने लगते हैं, which somehow hinders us to technically start looking at things beyond the process. And कुछ साल पहले people actually started realizing that process can give you a particular kind of a turnaround, but then not all the solutions were there in that process. And somehow, because we are dynamic, because the world is dynamic, the business world is dynamic, the human world is dynamic, the problems that we were getting with evolution was not, the solutions were not there in the process. And that is where the problems came in. So, or kyunki the necessity is the need for invention, that is a time when everybody in the business started thinking, where should we go? If I have a process and I have a problem, I go to the other person is also giving me a process which I already know possibly. So where is it that we are having troubles? What is it that is hindering us? So largely 3 things became the prime need: the desirability, the viability of the solution, and the feasibility of it. और इन 3 चीजों के बीच का जो कॉमन जोन आता है उसको हम इनोवेशन कहते हैं. ये 3 चीजें हमारे अंदर होती हैं as entrepreneurs. We desire solutions, we desire answers to the problems, we want to have these answers feasible within our zone of money and economy, and we want them very viable solutions which take care of our past problems but also can be utilized into future evolving problems that we might have. Now, that is the sweet spot that I want to take everybody today in. So this is where all of us are located. I'm assuming it. A lot of you might be at different positions here, but I just want to concentrate on where design thinking exists for entrepreneurs. It exists somewhere in that sweet spot of innovation that I'm talking about. Hypothetically, Tim Brown is one person who's really worked a lot. I'll just, rather than concentrating on what is written there, I would like to just all of you to just look at the figure. Neurologically, we say that, our brain is left side and right side of the brain. And there is this one particular side of the brain, which is very important for logical, scientific thinking. And there are certain amygdalas and, medullas of your head, which is responsible for scientific, mathematical, logical reasoning. And there's this other side of the brain, which is more chilled out, which is more colorful, which is more imaginary, which wants to do things that the brain itself cannot think of. And both of them are like twin brothers who are constant in a conflict. Now, the problem is that the way we are groomed in our education system, or the way we want to look at things, we are more routine groomed. So that is why there's a skewness in our head towards the logical brain. Everything that can give you reason, everything that can give you data, everything that can be proven is something which comes easy for us. So we assimilate that information easily. Classroom situations mein, ya management training situations mein, even HR training situations mein, we largely give case studies. Why? That is the scenario that happened and that is how we solved it. The idea is that's again massaging your logical side of the head. But what happens to the colorful side? And I think I just love the colors. I just love the randomness of it, and imperative of the randomness and the color part of it, off the other side of your medullas and your cyperbellums, you see an order in it. You see more life in it. You see more vibrancy in it. So design thinking is largely not saying that stop looking at that side of the brain, which is logical, and start thinking on the creative side of the head. No, but scientifically speaking, design thinking is about making sure that both the brothers play together. It's very important to get the design element, the innovation element within the business decisions. Now, there's a slight thing that I want to put in here. It's not about pure innovation. So how do I want to put design thinking? Largely, I would put it into 4 words. One, definitely we are looking at innovative solutions, which is a very age-old concept, but then a very strong coach approach, which is learning by doing approach. A lot of entrepreneurs in the market are entering as young entrepreneurs with the idea that because I've studied this, because I've known this, because I've seen this, I can do it. The idea is about dirtying your hands, learning by doing it. So I don't know how many people, and I think Sanjeev ji is going to be possibly the right person to tell, because you're running a manufacturing unit. How many times leading people within the organization have ever stood near a machine and calculated how it works, or figured out, let me spend 1 day in a month just to be there in the factory to understand the small nitty-gritty of it. So learning by doing approach, value of integrating design thinking. Design thinking is not just books. Design thinking is about finding a solution. Design thinking is about trying and pushing your other side of the brain to think creatively, to get into problem solving. Customer centric solution. Again, it's not just about putting a process in place, but I think as a customer teacher, when I tell a management student that there was a time when my customer changed in 2 years, today my customer changes in 45 days. So when the turnaround time of a garment manufacturer becomes 24 hours, that is because there's a customer expectation of changing within 45 days. That is how fast my customer is changing. So if my customer is changing very fast, I don't think so they're really looking in for process-led solutions. They're largely looking at solutions, and they're becoming the kings and the queens. They were always the kings and the queens, but now they know you don't have one Binaka or one Colgate in the market. I know I have 117 brands which clean my teeth, and you better be good for my kind of teeth for me to come and buy. So from the design thinking perspective and from the entrepreneurship perspective, the common ground of my sweet spot is that it has to be creative. It has to be somebody who's done the job, somebody who's got the experience. I would introduce a word here, which we call as the experience design. And it is there everywhere. It's about you learning the experience of doing things and then working towards solution and figuring out how things really operate. So funneling it down, design can be individual led, it can be very product led, it can be engineering and art, and still we have a common ground, but they do operate very, very separate and large zones. But what I'm talking about design thinking for entrepreneurs today, I am looking at teams. So collaboration is the word that I'm looking at. I am the designer, I design, I tell people this is how it will work, is possibly an old definition. We design, we collaborate. I need to know even from the smallest person, smallest entity who's working in the team, to how you are thinking. My experiences are important. Imperative what the team is saying, imperative what the idea is. Does it take me to a unique experience? Does it take me to an amicable experience? Does it take me to a beautiful grounding? And definitely something that I would add on into the business and the human part is technology today. So 3 things coming in together as broad ideas and coming in onto one common ground is how I look at design thinking. I would just bring in or let me wait for that example. So if we look at the concept of I'm sorry, so you can still see the slide. I'm sorry, मेरी यहाँ पे गायब हो गई थी. You guys can still see the slide. Okay. just a small part. So when a lot of managers or engineers or management people or entrepreneurs ask me ki baatein achhi hain design thinking, how do you do it? So I would just like to translate into two important things. One, I'm giving you the phases, how a normal entrepreneur should do it, what is expected. I have given certain questions which run into an entrepreneur's head while you are in that different phase process. So from discovery, where I'm thinking that I have the challenge and how do I approach it, in the interpretation where I learned something and how do I interpret it, to the ideation part, let's sit together and look at the opportunity and what do I create. From experimentation to, yes, 5 people had said different 5 things and now I have the idea and what is the know-how for me to build it, to evolution. Yes, I tried something new, it might not work. So let me just do a small exercise of, because morning we did this very nice small crisp case study of HR training, and it involved 3 important aspects to how I saw it. One, it involved the aspect of perspectives from different stakeholders, company, the managers and the employee. Number two, that particular case study talked about orientation to solution. What is it? We had a problem and we were looking at a solution. And number three, what we really talked about was what is the process that the organization is following. So अगर मैं उसी case study को इसमें add कर दूं, so what if I bring in a third manager here in that case study and say that let's imagine that manager was a creative thinker, or that manager was a design thinker. So as a problem, the challenge that I have is that I have an employee who did not take initiative, who did not come to me, who did not give me red flags. But now when I'm asking for a particular kind of work, that person is saying that, possibly I'm not equipped, I don't know, and I've not had enough training. So there's a challenge that I have, and which I discovered. The moment the employee sat in front of me, I discovered the challenge. Then did I interpret it well? So that is where we had a discussion regarding why, because we were 8-9 of us sitting together. That is where we interpreted the problem. So somebody said it's the problem of the employee perspective. Somebody said there is a third tangent. Somebody said that, there has to be an action of letting go the employee. That is also a perspective. So we interpreted that one action into multiple ways. So should we be using just one person for that perspective? I think a design thinker HR manager should be one person who would look at the problem from multiple perspectives and will possibly get multiple people to look at the problem, that am I missing something? So that is the addition that we need to do as design thinkers, as entrepreneurs, not only to take the sole responsibility of saying that I will find the solution, but taking the problem to different tables. यहाँ एक छोटी सी चीज ऐड करूंगी. साइकोलॉजी में हम लोग कहते हैं कि हमारे 700 इमोशंस होते हैं. We handle 700 emotions. Believe you me, we can't. But all these 700 emotions are centered around 9 access points in our head. अगर ये 9 access points हमारे firmed हैं, then we are emotionally regulated. I'm not going to say you're stable, but at least you're smart enough to use your emotions wherever you want to, the way you want to. उसमें और हम ये मानते हैं कि कोई भी इमोशन का दोनों साइड होता है, फ्लिप साइड होता है. So when there is one access point which says you blame yourself for everything, तो हम कहते हैं the good side is you take responsibility of your work, but the bad side of that particular trait is that somehow you think that I'm Brahma. मैंने काम नहीं किया तो प्रोजेक्ट नहीं हुआ, मैंने नहीं बोला तो इसलिए ठीक नहीं किया, मैं होता तो नेगोशिएट ऐसे करता और क्लोज कर लेता. That is you blaming yourself. No, oh my God, why didn't I do it? Yeah, had I been around, we would not have lost the game there. Now, exactly this is what I'm talking about here. So when we interpret a problem as a design thinker, as an entrepreneur who's a design thinking orientation, we need to interpret it from multiple dimensions. That is when the ideation comes in. So when you bring multiple heads in together, you collaborate. That is where ideation goes to a very different level. Business में, I normally do a lot of consultation and things for luxury retail. और मैं उन लोगों को भी, हम लोग यहाँ तक उनको सिखाते हैं कि अगर आप आज चांदनी चौक में चले जाइए, so a simple scientific phenomenon of merchandising, it's a very very loaded subject in business, की merchandising सिखाइए कि आपको कितना सामान बनवाना है, कितना सामान रखना है for your customer. उसके formulas हैं, softwares हैं. But do you know, a man sitting in Chandni Chowk, an average person, a decent retailer into selling bridal wear, do you know what's an average kind of a sales this person closes, who's sitting on the gaddi the entire day? And he's possibly on a salary of say 40,000, 45,000 rupees, but he closes a sale of approximately 9 lakhs to 14 lakhs every day. And the Lalaji who's doing that, who's making this man doing that, the best part is that every Friday and every Monday morning, Friday he'll sit with a cup of chai, ki tu chai manga, thodi kachori manga, and he'll ask that man, kya bika bhai, kya ruka bhai, क्या चल क्या रहा है, कैसा कस्टमर है, कौन सा कलर ज्यादा बिक रहा है, कौन सा मेक ज्यादा बिक रहा है. They go to that level. So from there they start their merchandising. So the entire science जिसमें majority retail business टिका होता है, उसको हम merchandising कहते हैं. Rather than doing through a software that punch in what you require, I need to have a cup of tea with you to understand and give me an idea. So what should we do? ये इतना फैब्रिक आ गया, क्या करो? सो सर इस फैब्रिक को ना साड़ी की जगह निकालने की जगह लेट्स पुल इट आउट एज सूट पीसेस, क्योंकि दुपट्टे में ज्यादा अच्छा लग रहा है लेडीज को. ऑल राइट, लेट्स डू इट. सो द स्मॉलेस्ट यूनिट इन योर स्टोर इज गिविंग यू एन आइडिया. It's very easily said. A lot of people, when they discuss and we debate, they say, in large organization that's not possible. No, I think we run the biggest democracy in the world, and the way things we have seen, if we want to, we can incorporate this with even the biggest of organizations. Then comes the experimentation, picking out certain solutions. So this HR manager could have taken the problem to one or two important people, discussed it, possibly could have created a gumble of solutions, and then move ahead to find the right solution. At times she would have experimented. Let's give you 3 months. All right, I'll give you 2 trainings and you do this job. Let me see, is training the missing part? After the training, the employee doesn't do. So putting a cap on that. Let me give you 20 days. Let me do this. Let me do a review after this. So again, possibly multiple solutions, applying it, and then moving forward towards what we call as evolving. So we would have evolved either ways. लास्ट पॉइंट एक और चीज ऐड करूंगी, डिजाइन थिंकिंग में भय की जगह नहीं है. When you get into a design thinking process as an entrepreneur, something that you let go of in your head is the fear of losing. So either ways, अगर आपने ट्रेनिंग करी और एम्प्लॉय ने काम नहीं किया, then also you have not lost anything, because you got valid data, ample reasons for telling that person, thank you so much, you need to be evolved if you want to work with me. If in any case the training worked, you've got an employee who's ready for something new. And in either case, you got to learn how to solve that one particular problem. So anyways, that bhai of, will it be waste of time? Will it be waste of energy? I think that bhai goes away when you just start pushing your head to think in the more colorful way. Just wanted to summarize the 10 pointers that I think that design thinking can bring if you get into practice of design thinking as a leader. There are workshops, there are training processes, there are very elaborative work which can be done on design thinking, where we push you into giving you business problems and push you to think like an entrepreneur from the design perspective. So action oriented, supporting change, developing a foresight, dynamic and iterative, adaptive process, combines logic and creativity. So these are some very generic 10 kinds of takeaway when you get into design thinking and practicing it. Because I'm now ending the concept of design thinking, if I just give you tangible takeaways, it somewhere pushes you into non-denominational thinking. Very important. Scientifically speaking, हर human being cognitive schemas में काम करता है, and we love to look into common denominators. हम बहुत सारी problems के common causes निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं. Scientifically, that is not right. Every problem has its own ingredient, and one or the other ingredient is different in every problem. A good entrepreneur is who's able to understand every problem's texture to its own subjective level. So non-denominational thinking is very important, which is something which is pushed when you become a design thinker as an entrepreneur. meanings to align. Alignment and collaboration are the two words which are very important. ये आपके दो कंधों पर बैठनी चाहिए. आज की डेट में I think alignment is not about process. Alignment is about bringing two absolutely opposite things onto common ground and creating a bridge so that you can use the best of both. Ram and Ravan could have been the best team in the world, with their potentialities, with their disadvantages, with their problems that they had in their attitude and behavior. But the only problem why it led to a war was because they couldn't find a common ground or thought process. So even Ravan is respected more than Sri Ram because of his intelligence, because of his ability. The only problem is he didn't know alignment, he didn't know collaboration. Creativity, the means to deliver has to be creative. It's very important for you to get into a more creative zone. और as I said, because denominational thinking खत्म हो जाती है, तो आप हर प्रॉब्लम का एक कॉमन कॉज सोचना बंद कर देते हैं, और जब कॉज कॉमन नहीं होता तो जाहिर बात है आपके सॉल्यूशंस क्रिएटिव हो जाते हैं. यू गेट मोर एक्सपीरियंशियल इन नेचर. you'd love to experience things, and उस भय को खत्म कर देता है कि मैं इसमें से हासिल क्या करूंगा. Again, I would just translate it into simple processes in the world. I think whenever I meet anybody, believe you me, today coming to this forum, I did not spend 5 minutes in thinking that how will my 2 hours be translated. However, what the logic that I came in here is with the fact that if I'm investing 2 hours here, there is going to be something happening out of this meeting. What I don't know. But then the fear of losing, the fear of investing and not getting anything out of it goes away when you get into experiential thinking and you get into more alignment and creativity. And definitely you enter into a predictive mechanism. क्यों? क्योंकि आपको predict करने से हम लोगों को हम predict इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि वो हमको psychologically secure करता है. It secures us psychologically. Just when I know what is going to happen, it makes me happy. हम चाहे पंडितों के पास जाएं, चाहे अपनी प्रॉब्लम को प्रेडिक्ट करें, I know why this is not happening. The moment you say I know why this is not happening, you've just protected yourself that all right, I know what is not happening and I'm not going to find a new solution to it. I already have a solution, इसी को चिपका दो. But again, the problem is शायद ही मेरे 25 एम्प्लॉइज के साथ हुआ है, शायद ही मेरे 25 वेंडर्स के साथ हुआ है, शायद ही मेरे 25 सप्लायर्स के साथ हुआ है, बट ये 26वीं प्रॉब्लम है. अच्छा बैठ बेटा, समझा प्रॉब्लम क्या है. हो सकता है 19 में से 18 चीजें आपको फर्क होंगी, बट आपकी काबिलियत ये है कि आप वो 19वीं ढूंढ पाते हैं, क्योंकि अगर वो 20 सप्लायर एक नहीं थे, they were different people, they had different orientations and they did business with you with a different intention. So are you able to understand that? I'm proposing a takeaway from this, what we call as the business canvas. So the business model canvas technically, सबसे अच्छा तरीका apply to start off with, जैसे मैंने शुरू किया when I got into a very full-fledged training on becoming a design thinker as a business manager. I think something that I was taught is what I'm going to present to the table here, was getting into the habit of business model canvas. मुझे सिखाया गया कि आपके कमरे में एक बोर्ड होना चाहिए. मुझे सिखाया गया कि कहीं आप जितने लोगों से बात करिए उनका पर्सपेक्टिव उस बोर्ड पे आना चाहिए. मुझे सिखाया गया, जैसे सारी मूवीज में दिखाते हैं कि FBI creates a broad chart and then tries and connects everything through an arrow. Get into that. Create a canvas for every problem. That canvas can be the board in your room. That canvas can be the diary that you're carrying. That canvas can be a plain sheet. But दिमाग में problem है और मैं answer करूं, वो नहीं होना चाहिए. Put it down to the canvas. I have seen, I normally coach CEOs and CFOs and people who are holding, 500 crores or 100,000 crore business. So as a team, we coach them as human beings. And जो सबसे बड़ी resistance मुझे किसी भी एक CEO या CFO से आती है, वो आती है, भावना लिखने के लिए मत कहो ना, समझाओ, बताओ, what do you want me to do? But मेरा मुद्दा होता नहीं, सर टीचर हूँ, किताब उठाइए, कागज उठाइए, लिखिए. दो phenomena काम करते हैं psychology में. A lot of times when a mother talks to me as a psychologist, I just keep doing this, and she's like, आप क्या कर रहे हो डॉक्टर साहब? So I say, are you listening to yourself? It's very important. हमारी माँ शुरू से कहती थी, बोल बोल कर याद करो, बोल बोल कर याद करो. You know why? Because it's very important to hear what you say. Exactly the same way, you want to have a new perspective to your problem, jot it down, put it in the canvas, write it on slips and put it up there. I normally love to translate workshops into actionables. So the first actionable, अगर आप ये कर पाते हैं और आप यकीन मानिए, I am here, you can take my number from Kanchan, please call me if you realize, oh my God, how tough it is. You won't be able to do that. It takes a lot of energy from within, saying, "Acha, ek ye problem hai, acha, yaar, let me have these postage and let me put the problem and put it up there and then look at it from a different tangent." I'll introduce the word, get into objective thinking. For a normal business person, if I give you a percentage coming in from Harvard Business School, it says that good 93% of our thought process is subjective. I feel, I think, I know. This is how I understand. But then the problem is not with me. The problem exists outside. And do we have an objective view? क्या हमारे अंदर capability है अपने आप को इस problem से detach करके दूर खड़े होके उसको देखने की and still figuring out that now I understand what is not happening. I'll come to the second and almost now reaching the end of what I wanted to tell you in a very summarized way is what is the core ingredient that you should develop or harness in yourself as an entrepreneur when you are looking at becoming a design thinking manager. And that is disruptive thinking. Disruptive thinking is scary. Disruptive thinking pushes your life into a very typical kind of a non-homeostatic position. एक छोटा सा premise देती हूँ. I'm really sorry, but I'm a storyteller. I'm a Kathak dancer, so I can't help but tell stories. But ध्यान से देखिए, आपका शरीर, your mind, your body, your biologically, ईश्वर ने आपको homeostasis के लिए बनाया है. आपका बाहर का टेम्परेचर, अंदर का टेम्परेचर इज बैलेंस्ड आउट. आपको गर्मी लगती है, पसीना आने लगता है. हम सब ने साइंस में पढ़ा है कि पसीना सूखता है तो बॉडी टेम्परेचर नॉर्मल हो जाता है. हमारा ब्लड प्रेशर इज एज पर वट एवर दी प्रेशर आउटसाइड इज. और वही चीज हम करते हैं, हम हवाई जहाज में प्रेशर मेंटेन करते हैं, हम हर जगह पर. what is all of us striving for? We strive for homeostasis. And the moment a person who's owning a small shop in Karol Bagh says, यार एक दिन ना मैं भी उसी जगह पे मकान बनाऊंगा जहां अंबानी ने बनाया, and you walk out and you say, seriously? But believe you me, Dhirubhai Ambani would have said the same thing one day sitting somewhere, that I'll have that kind of an empire someday. So anybody who translated things was somebody who was not scared of thinking and was not scared of non-homeostatic situations. So what I'm pushing you is to get into the feeling of disruption. It's like the chaos theory. The chaos theory is a very interesting theory in physics. I think मैंने ये पहले उसमें भी कहा था, हमारे दिमाग में एक chaotic order होता है. These are two opposite words. When you say opposite बताइए chaos का, तो आप कहते हैं order. But there is something called as a chaotic order. And it's the art of living with chaos that takes you towards tangible solutions. और आप किसी भी अपने behavior को देख लीजिए, it leads, घर का daily का काम, your maid will have a routine. Turn around the routine one day. आज तू छोड़, सफाई मत कर, आज पहले नाश्ता कर ले. Then we'll do this. Try doing that. ऊपर अंदर बाहर सब हिल जाता है. No. This is not how it can happen. So disruptive thinking is the core ingredient that I look at when I am looking at design thinking. So design thinking cannot happen in an entrepreneur till the point you drill that kind of disruptive thinking attitude. Cubic, square. A lot of people say it's movement, a lot of people say it's science, it's speed, it's logic. Agreed. But again, I would go back to data, and the Journal of Clinical Psychology 2014 mentioned a research that actually talked about that people who solve the cubic square are the people who have the capacity to disrupt it जब सारा बन जाता है और लास्ट का एक स्क्वायर रह जाता है. They are the people who are not scared of disrupting it again and going random and trying and solving it back. हमारे साथ क्या होता है, वी आर सो मच इनटू ऑर्डर कि अगर हमारे एक स्क्वायर भी रह जाता है, वे लाइक अब इसको छोड़ देते भाई, इससे ज्यादा नहीं हो पाएगा, लेट्स लीव द लास्ट स्क्वायर. So that is what I'm putting in here, the disruptive thinking, and I'm putting the pyramid absolutely opposite. Normally, when I do these presentation for large group of senior executives and many people in the hall, suddenly I start listening to a lot of mumbling around. What is she saying? She's actually saying ki, no, ulta karo the pyramid. Yes, this is exactly what I'm saying, ulta karo the pyramid. That is what is important. It's about the growth and the opportunity and the value lies in disruptive thinking, and that is from where we need to start. हम जब हमारी नानी क्रीम इस्तेमाल करती थी, and I'm really sorry about rudimentary examples, but I don't know, I can't think beyond that. My nani lived with the idea कि क्रीम होनी चाहिए, 400 पॉन्ड्स हो, सफेद रंग की क्रीम होनी चाहिए जिससे मेरी खाल सूखे नहीं. Simple. She had no idea about skincare, and she lived her life happily with one charmis or one Pond's cream. But then somebody sitting up there had a disruptive thinking very unknowingly, said, nahi, why should nani only buy a cream? Let me put the component of fairness in it. Na? So if I show you the gesture, they carved a need within the customer of fairness. Then when they sold fairness, again, disruptive thinking, some marketer said, no, it has to be about aging. Did any customer go back to any manufacturing unit and say that I want fairness now? Customers had no idea. They buy what you give them. Aaj tak logic hai. So demographic comes the latest. Anybody had Steve Jobs done? I'm open to debate. I'm not saying that doing a demographic study or doing a market evaluation or a market viability for a product is a wrong process. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that do it. But then in your cognition, start with disruptive thinking. That is exactly what I'm putting in. I'm saying rather than just making a frame of getting into market viability study as the primary process of your growth, get into open thinking, opportunities, value, and then creating things accordingly. Let me show you something.
Okay, let's get started. Yo guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I have something to share. A lot of people keep on asking me how to differentiate yourself. If you wanted to differentiate yourself, first things first is to disrupt the way you think. So in order for you to make something different or something more substantial and to become a game changer, you need to disrupt your thinking. That's how you always have to think. You can't be the same. Why I keep on doing the same thing? Why I have to be like the rest? That's how you get started to become so unique.
Sorry, I'm just stopping it here. Most of the people ask me a question, how to start doing it. So the best way to start doing it, whenever you're putting a problem onto the canvas, everything that you're putting up there is a problem. But then find the piece that you have worked with, find the piece which is the easiest for you to start off with. You need to find that one post-it, say, all right, this is what I think I'm most comfortable to start off with. If in sequence, this is how I have to solve the problem, let me start with this. This is exactly what he's talking about.
You become so unique. You're creating a value of who you are. And when someone realize and discover who you are, and that is when people keep on coming back to you. this is what you are going to make very soon, inshallah. So always disrupt your thinking, never be the same, and the key word is innovate yourself. Remember, game changer.
So I think I want to, again, ending this part, and I'm almost now on to the end of my presentation. हम जब रिसर्च करते हैं, I do a lot of business researches for brands. मुझे कंज्यूमर समझ में आता है. People call me saying हमारा कंज्यूमर क्या चाहता है, तो मुझे कंज्यूमर को समझने की आदत है. जब हम कंज्यूमर रिसर्च करते हैं तो हम अक्सर प्रोसीजरली हम कहते हैं भाई पहले छोटे से शुरू करो, you start thinking like this. But then destructive thinking says go divergent first, start with this and then funnel it down. So if you look at the process of destructive thinking and design managerial thinking, you've got to go into divergence first. Start thinking of the most random things coming first. That is the rule of design process. So अगर आप design process को समझिए, वो आपको ये कहता है पहले divergent करो and then get into deductions and reach to a funnel out very particular level of focused inductive process. So this is how you start diverging and this is how you start converging, and that is where the time, the effort, the ambiguity of ideas is going to get sorted and find its own place. Again, the last bit, how does it enter into leadership? Now, the moment you push yourself into destructive thinking, the moment you push yourself into design creative ideas or being a design manager, suddenly you become a transformational leadership rather than transactional leadership. I normally tell parents, notice करिए 10 मिनट अपनी वाइफ को बोलिए, अपने हस्बैंड को बोलिए आपका वीडियो बनाएंगे with your children and you'll understand that good 90% of a conversation is instructional. खाना खा ले, बैठ जा, उठ जा. We instruct people. Just do some introspective looking at yourself when you operate ourselves with our workers, with our co-workers, with our colleagues, with senior people. Not much with senior people, but जब हम office में as bosses बैठते हैं, as managers बैठते हैं, हमारा बहुत सारा conversation is instruction because we need to get the work done. So it's important to give out instructions, right? I remember the traditional business schools that really talk about the fact that make sure that you deliver, you give them the work, learn to dissipate work. But then the moment you become a design thinker, you become a transformational leader. You technically get into motivating people. You get into the conversation zone. You get into identifying individual people with individual power. Maybe off lately in one of the, it's a very, very leading, it's the third biggest organization in India. And I am the coach to their the top team. It's a team of 12 people. I can't reveal the name of the brand, but they are the biggest people when it comes to luxury retail. And while I was talking to them, so I was just telling them, senior managers, that how important it is to pick up your team. और जब आप टीम को पिक करते हैं तो आपके लिए इंडिविजुअल कंसिडरेशंस कितने इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाते हैं, बिकॉज हर एक आदमी में 60% चीजें सेम हो सकती हैं, बट यू नीड टू पिक दैट 40% व्हिच इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द प्रोजेक्ट. एंड व्हाइल आई वाज एक्सप्लेनिंग, आई सेड ऑल राइट, रादर देन गिविंग यू अ थ्योरी और अ लॉजिक, मैं आपको एक पोयम सुना देती हूँ, एक हास्य कविता सुना देती हूँ. एंड सडनली ऑल सीनियर मेंबर पीपल, एवरीबडी ऑन एन एवरेज ऑन एन सैलरी ऑफ 1 CR to 1.8 to 2 CR, suddenly they gave me that smirky smile ki seriously poem on this forum. And I said, just let me make the idea very clear. And I want you to imagine what I'm trying to tell you. एक 10 second लूंगी, but I would like to give you that poem. It's an हास्य कविता, and the हास्य कविता says कि एक गूंगे ने की एक बहरे से बात, एक गूंगे ने की एक बहरे से बात, चलो अंधे से पूछें अभी दिन है कि रात. एक गूंगे ने की एक बहरे से बात, चलो अंधे से पूछे अभी दिन है कि रात. अंधे ने लंगड़े को दौड़ाया, अंधे ने लंगड़े को दौड़ाया, लंगड़ा दौड़ता दौड़ता लूले को पकड़ लाया. अंधे ने लंगड़े को दौड़ाया, लंगड़ा दौड़ता दौड़ता लूले को पकड़ लाया. लूले ने आते ही हवा में तलवार चलाना शुरू किया, और गूंगे ने गाना शुरू किया, और लंगड़े ने एक पांव पर नाचना शुरू किया. And this is exactly how the work happens when you have a team of people that you are fond of, but you have not focused on that 40% of individual qualities and individual considerations that you've had. And believe you me, I think that was one of my top hit workshops, because I chose not to give them a theory. I think it was important to imagine how your team will look like when something like this will happen. Can you ever get the work done? And that is how scary it becomes. Just a small example. That was not the only thing that I did, by the way. I did many things which were more scientific, but I'm just trying and saying that, again, going to basics is something which is very important. You need to idolize. They start idolizing you. यू नो गांधी जी एक दफा बैठे थे और एक औरत अपने बच्चे को उनके पास मीलों पैदल चला के लेकर गई और उसने कहा, गांधी जी आप समझा देंगे ना तो ये बात मान लेगा, ये ना चीनी बहुत खाता है। तो गांधी जी ने कहा, अच्छा ऐसा है, तुम क्या करना, 3 हफ्ते बाद आना मेरे पास। सो द वुमन वाज वेरी टेकन अबैक, 3 हफ्ते बाद हो, मतलब व्हाट नॉनसेंस, मैं इतनी दूर से चलकर आई, आपको जो बताना अभी बताओगे ना, 3 हफ्ते बाद आना। एंड देन मरती क्या ना करती, वापस गई, फिर कलपती हुई 3 हफ्ते बाद आई कि पता नहीं अब क्या बताएंगे। एंड देन शी सेड, अब मैं आ गई 3 हफ्ते बाद, अब बताइए कैसी छुड़ाऊं इसकी चीनी, ये बहुत चीनी खाता है। तो गांधी जी ने कहा, बेटा चीनी खाने से ना सेहत खराब होती है, थोड़ी खाया करो, ज्यादा मत खाया करो, ठीक है, अब जाओ। एंड द वुमन वाज टेकन अबैक कि यही कहना था बाबूजी आपने, तो ये आप पहले कहते थे, आप 3 हफ्ते बाद मुझे दोबारा बुला रहे हो। तो उन्होंने कहा, नहीं नहीं, मैंने 3 हफ्ते चीनी नहीं खाई, करके देखा, तब मुझे लगा कि अब मैं बता सकता। Experiential. If you get into design forums, it's very important for you to experience. और जब आप experience करेंगे, आप जो महसूस करेंगे आप उसको translate करेंगे अपने workers, अपने employees, अपने managers के लिए, और वो आपको idea. That is where the real role modelship starts. So every person who wants the people to be prompt at 9, you've got to have, I'm not saying reach at 9 because you possibly work till 9 o'clock, your employees work till 6 o'clock, but then you've got to make that very clear, because my day starts at 11, I finish my day at 8. You start your day at 9 and you finish your day at 6. So there's a science behind it. It's more about them looking up to you with logical reasons. And definitely something that will happen is the intellectual stimulation. So I think stimulation in terms of meeting people not only like-minded. I'm slightly against the concept of meeting like-minded people. Why would I want to meet a like-minded person? I would want to meet everybody and anybody, because every mind I know is going to get, as a neuro person, if I reject the idea of anybody having unique, I'm in the wrong profession, in a wrong place. I learn from everything. I learn everything from everybody. Just an applied model takeaway. If you're looking at low autonomy and you're looking at low alignment, this is how you'll do. So ye not that mujhe batana hai kisi ko, but I want you to locate yourself where you are presently. The kind of alignment that you're wanting and the kind of autonomy that you're wanting, which quadrangle do you put yourself in? And not that we have to discuss that, but then the moment you put yourself honestly in that quadrangle, you'll suddenly understand what is missing. And what is the best quadrangle to be there in? The high alignment and low autonomy is the best place to be. Should it be? I don't know. Figure out where you want to be. So there's nothing like a theory that we say this is the best place to be. No, but figure out where you are and where you want to go. This tells you the navigation route that you want to take. Actionables. What are you allowing for? So 4 सवाल जो मेरे डायरी के पीछे लिखे रहते हैं, मुझे मालूम नहीं ये आप लोग लिखना चाहेंगे नहीं लिखना चाहेंगे, लेकिन any biggest to smallest problem that I deal with, 4 things is what I work on. What am I allowing for, or what is it that I'm not allowing for, or what are my restrictions? What are you currently making time for? I normally tell top leaders, when I'm doing restructuring, when I'm looking at coaching them, the entire idea is about making sure कि उनका mental space खाली हो. आज की डेट में major leaders के साथ problem ये है, वो operational issues में involved है, basic operations में involved है, जिसकी वजह से they don't have mental space which is empty, and that is why they cannot think beyond a particular point. They don't have mental space to think creatively. They don't have mental space to have a vision. And अगर आप ध्यान से, my dad was an IAS officer, और हम कहते थे ना आपके पास तो driver है. He says no, driver is not comfort. शोफर सरकारी लॉजिक, वो शुरू से कहते थे सरकार की हर बात में साइंस होती है, तुम्हें समझ में आए ना समझ में आए वो एक अलग चीज है, बट शोफर्स आर गिवन टू यू नॉट बिकॉज यू ग्रेट. Chauffeurs are given to you because your mental space and your time is so important that you're thinking while you're on your way also. So it's about it's about utilizing the time in the best format. That is why drivers are given to you or chauffeurs are given to you. So exactly the same way, what am I making my time for? What are you openly supporting and modeling? Am I doing what I'm really trying and saying? What are you celebrating and assessing and measuring? So these are the 4 actionables on the table which need to be focused in if you want to put yourself into disruptive thinking, design thinking. The launch model, the last slide, I'm sorry, I'm saying last slide, but Anira, your last slide had the launch model where the takeaways: look, listen, and learn, ask tons and tons of questions. आज मैं बच्चों के साथ स्किल बिल्डिंग करती हूँ और मैं एक ही चीज कहती हूँ, सवाल करने की आदत डालो, कहाँ, क्यों, कैसे, कब. Ask maximum questions. Ask tons of questions. My CEO, my executive director at one level, अगर उन्होंने मुझे कोई जिम्मेदारी दी थी, वो आके खड़े हो जाते थे और फिर कहते थे, अरे ये भी हुआ है भावना, and then I used to start explaining, हाँ सर, आपको पता है ये ऐसे नहीं हो रहा था, फिर मैंने ऐसे कहा, हाँ. And in my early days, I thought, oh seriously, he doesn't know. No, इनको मालूम ही नहीं है. डॉक्टर नायर मेरे से ये पूछ रहे थे. But believe you me, after working with him for 10 years, I knew that he knew what he was talking about. It was just his way of asking questions, because the more questions he asked, the more he made me realize what has not happened. So you better focus there, because that is the kind of information he had. Understand the process and the problem, navigate ideas with the group, collaborate, definitely create prototypes. Don't be scared of losing it, because your prototypes towards the end of the day give you the final product. So no prototype is a failure. No sample that you create is going to be a failure. It's going to give you a clarity on what you really need to make and highlight and fix the problem. Learn to uncomplicate. Again, decomplicate is my word, but for all academic reasons, I chose the dictionary word as uncomplicate. सिर्फ disruptive thinking आपको basics पे ले जाती है, और कैसे ले जाती है एक इस last video से साबित करूंगी, and this is the end of my presentation. I love this, and I think this is what we need to try and put into our systems.
What is a machine? आप मुस्कुरा क्यों रहे हैं?
एक्चुअली सर, बचपन से चाहता था कि इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज में पढूं. आज यहाँ बैठा हूँ, बहुत मजा आ रहा है सर.
ज्यादा मजा लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. बोलो, मशीन का डेफिनेशन बोलो.
सर, a machine is anything that reduces human effort, sir.
Will you please elaborate?
सर, हर वो चीज जो इंसान का काम आसान करे या वक्त बचाए, वो मशीन है सर. गर्मी लग रही है, बटन दबाया, हवा चालू, फैन, मशीन है सर. मीलों दूर आप अपने दोस्त के साथ बात कर सकते हैं, टेलीफोन, मशीन है सर. करोड़ों का हिसाब चुटकी में करता है, कैलकुलेटर, मशीन है सर. सर, एक्चुअली हम मशीनों से घिरे हुए हैं सर. पेन की निब से लेके पैंट की जिप तक सब मशीन है सर. एक सेकंड में अप, एक सेकंड में डाउन, अप डाउन, अप डाउन, अप डाउन.
डेफिनेशन क्या है?
सर, वही तो बता रहा हूँ सर.
एग्जाम में यही सब लिखोगे? ये मशीन है. अप डाउन, अप डाउन. इडियट. एनीबडी एल्स? यस.
Sir, machines are any combination of bodies so connected that their relative motions are constrained, and by which means force and motion may be transmitted and modified as a screw in its nut, or a lever arranged to turn about a fulcrum, or a pulley about its pivot, etc. Especially a construction more or less complex, consisting of a combination of moving parts or simple mechanical elements as wheels, levers, cams, etc.
क्या बात है? Perfect. Please sit down.
Thank you. Thank you.
लेकिन सर, मैंने भी तो वही बताया सर, आसान भाषा में.
आपको अगर सिंपल भाषा पसंद हो तो आर्ट्स एंड कॉमर्स कॉलेज ज्वाइन कीजिए.
लेकिन सर, मतलब भी तो समझ में आना चाहिए. ऐसे किताबी डेफिनेशन रट के क्या फायदा?
आप किताब से ज्यादा जानते हैं. किताब में यही डेफिनेशन है, और अगर आपको पास होना हो तो आप यही लिखेंगे.
लेकिन सर, और भी तो किताबें हैं जिसमें... ओह, व्हाई?
आसान भाषा में बाहर जाइए. Idiot. So we were discussing about the machine. अरे, तुम वापस क्यों आए हो?
सर, कुछ भूल गया हूं सर.
क्या?
Instruments that record, analyze, summarize, organize, debate, and explain information that are illustrative, non-illustrative, hardbound, paperback, jacketed, non-jacketed, with forward introduction, table of contents, index that are intended for the enlightenment, understanding, enrichment, enhancement, and education of the human brain through sensory route of vision, sometimes touch.
अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो?
किताबें सर, बुक्स भूल गया सर, ले लो।
तो सीधा सीधा नहीं कह सकते थे?
थोड़ी देर पहले कोशिश की थी सर, लेकिन आपको सीधा सीधा पसंद नहीं आया।
This is exactly what I mean when I say decomplicate. I couldn't resist myself. So decomplicate, go back to basics. It's very important to start looking at solutions down, because yakin mane, again, science says, my journal of neuroanatomy says human brain is not even utilized beyond 1.8%. I am worrying to think what all we can do if we just go down and start using disruptive thinking, creative thinking, and just finding ideas amongst ourselves. So don't look for ideas to confirm your thinking, rather look for trends that will disrupt your thinking. Start doing disruptive thinking and move towards becoming a transformational leader rather than a transactional leader, and lead your team with more empathy, collaboration, and design. Design is the game. Thank you so much.